Hello and welcome to the inaugural Let's Talk Play Symposium benefiting the Glazer Children's Museum. I'm Sarah Cole, President and CEO, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. The Glazer Children's Museum is a nonprofit organization where the mission is to create a learning laboratory where children play, discover, and connect to the world around them and to develop as lifelong learners and leaders. This event would not be possible without our generous sponsors. Their support helps us keep play going all throughout the year. You can join them today in support of children in our community through a simple text to give donate option. The phone number will be on your screen throughout the symposium, and you can text your donation at any time. Today, we're here to talk about healing and resilience through play. Over the past year and a half, the pandemic has created new challenges for all of us, and children are no exception. Children have endured disruptions to their schedule, to their education, and to their social lives. They've had to manage their own challenges while the adults in their lives experience heightened strain. Many children are experiencing an unprecedented level of stress due to factors like scary news headlines, isolation, and separation anxiety, just to name a few. But there's good news. Play provides respite and helps children cope with stress and heal from it. From joyful movement to social interactions to creative self-expression, play has countless benefits for children and adults alike. Every time a child plays with an adult, with another child, or by themselves, a new connection forms in the brain, building that child's potential for the future. As children play, they stretch their imaginations, use creativity, improve their motor skills, take risks, and they learn to adapt. Play develops empathy and social skills as kids from different backgrounds, races, genders, and abilities all play together to build friendships. Playful children become powerful adults. Today, we're going to hear from a wonderful lineup of experts who will be diving deep into the benefits of play. After the presentation, please join me for a conversation to reflect on their insights. We invite you to leave comments and questions in the chat throughout the symposium, and we'll be selecting from those to help guide our discussion at the end. And now, I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Danielle Sutton with Sutton Psychology Group. Dr. Sutton is a licensed psychologist and a board-certified behavior analyst who's provided clinical services to individuals with autism and related disabilities for over 25 years. Today, she'll explore the link between imaginative play and the cognitive, social, and language skills, and provide strategies for promoting quality pretend play experiences in a climate of fun. Welcome, Dr. Sutton.
Hi, my name is Danielle Sutton, and I'm a licensed psychologist and a board-certified behavior analyst, and I'm going to talk to you today about the importance of play. The American Academy of Pediatrics regularly puts out policy papers about a wide variety of topics. Past topics have included diabetes management, helping a child deal with divorce, and in 2018, they put out a paper on the importance of play. And they did so because they felt that play was really being undervalued in our society, despite the fact that research shows that it's so important to a child's overall development. So today I'm going to highlight for you some of the main points of that paper and incorporate some other research as well. And I really like this picture. This is a little 10-month-old playing with some pots and pans on the kitchen floor. And I like this because it shows that kids can have a lot of fun just playing with common household items. We don't need expensive, fancy toys. They can really have fun with anything they find around the house. So what is play? Researchers have come to a consensus about certain characteristics that should be present for something to be considered play. Play is pleasurable. Child should be having fun. Play requires active engagement, so a passive activity like watching television would not be considered play. Play is voluntary and intrinsically motivated, meaning kids are playing because they want to. Play involves attention to means over ends, so it's not so much the end product, the end Lego creation that they've built, but the process of actually putting it together. Play is flexible and changing. Every single time the child picks up that train set, their play is going to look a little different. And play has a non-literal orientation. Sometimes the paper towel roll is going to be a telescope, and sometimes it's a microphone. So I want to quickly go through and talk about what we know about why play is so important to a child's development. And starting with play and cognition, there's some research from animal studies showing that play has both a direct and indirect effect on brain functioning, on the molecular, cellular, and behavioral levels, that it actually makes the brain more efficient. Play is where a child develops an awareness of the function and meaning of objects. So a child can watch dad fixing the car with some tools, but when they have their own toy tool set and get to explore with that, that's where the learning really happens. Play helps a child develop knowledge of spatial, causal, and categorical relationships, how things go together. Play generates flexibility, creativity, and problem-solving abilities. How many things can we do with this paper towel roll, with this box? And then play enhances curiosity, and research shows that increased curiosity is linked with later memory and learning. So when we give a child a new toy and they get to explore all the different ways that they can play with it, it's very important for their brain development. Play is also very important for a child's social development. Play provides an opportunity for children to make friendships. It's very important at school, during recess, and out on the playground. It's an opportunity for them to learn how to negotiate and compromise, and these are skills that are so important for a child throughout their lifespan. It's an opportunity for them to practice turn-taking and sharing. It gives them an opportunity to practice social roles so they can pretend to be mom or teacher or firefighter. And then during that social role playing, it also helps them build perspective-taking skills so that they can start to see situations from other people's point of view. They can see what it feels like to be teacher in front of the classroom. And that perspective-taking is actually very important for the development of empathy. Play is also extremely important to a child's language development. Play is really where children begin to learn about the back and forth nature of communication. So this goes way back to playing peekaboo with mom as an infant, and they get used to kind of how that back and forth nature of social interaction goes. And that lays the framework for later on the child developing an understanding of communication and having a back and forth verbal interchange. Because language is symbolic, the word apple is just a symbol for the actual apple. Symbolic play is really important for a child's development. It's where they start to learn about symbols, that a block can represent many different things. And then finally, language-enriched play is very important. And that's when an adult will come in and talk about what the child's playing and build on their language. So the child says car, and the mom says, yes, it's a blue car. Play is also extremely important for a child's emotional development. Play is where a child has an opportunity to work through perplexing events, the first day of school, or a visit to the dentist, or even a traumatic event. And I think some of my colleagues are going to talk about that more today. Play provides a sense of control over external events. Children often feel that they have very little control. But if we give them an opportunity to practice something through play, for example, they can pretend to be the doctor and use a toy doctor's kit. That gives them a sense of control. And it provides practice at expressing different types of emotions. Play is a very safe place for them to explore the very big feelings that children often have. So why is play so important? And we think there's kind of 5 main elements of play that make it so valuable. First of all, children are active and engaged, and active learning is always going to outpace passive learning. Passive learning is watching the video, and active learning is the engaged, hands-on activity. Play is meaningful, so instead of just kind of surface learning, they're actually doing deep learning. They're being able to take something maybe that they learned in a STEM lecture at school and then go to the museum and actually practice it. Play is socially interactive. The children get to question each other and challenge their ideas, and then hopefully come up with shared knowledge and take that shared knowledge onto new situations. Play is joyful. Again, research shows that when kids are having fun, it's going to facilitate their learning. And then finally, play is iterative. And by that, I just mean when you watch kids play, sometimes their play might look a little bit repetitive with just slight variations. That's iterative play. They are generating hypotheses and they're testing them and they're coming up with new knowledge. Some researchers came up with this visual that depicts play on a spectrum, and I think this is really valuable. On the left-hand side, we have play that is initiated and directed by the child, and that's true free play. The child's doing whatever they want with whatever they want. We move over to guided play, where the adult might set up some different activities for the child, and the adult may go in and scaffold the child's play, make play suggestions, or follow the child's lead, but the child is initiating all of that activity. As we move to the right, we get into co-opted play. That's where the child chooses the activity. The child may pick the shape sorter, but the well-intentioned adult may come in and start to get directive. What color is this? What shape is this? Put this here. And then on the far end, we have really direct instruction where it's initiated and directed by the adult. Research consistently shows that that left-hand side of this diagram, the free play and the guided play, is most important for developing those areas that I talked about before: cognitive development, language development, social, and emotional. I'm going to show you two videos now. The first one depicts a child in free play, and the second one depicts a child in guided play. So in this video, we have a little 14-month-old boy playing with some blocks. And I want to point out he's got one of those fancy electronic toys in the background, but he's choosing just to play with some blocks. So you can see here he is working on stacking these blocks and having a hard time, but being very persistent. And a well-intentioned adult could come in here and show him how to stack these blocks so that they would not fall down and kind of direct that activity. But he figures it out on his own, and I want you to see what he does. As soon as the blocks, he succeeds, he gets them in the tower, and he knocks them down. Because the point for him was not to create a tower, but to enjoy the process of actually. So in this video, we have a 48-month-old playing with mom, also again playing with.
I'm putting another blue block on top of the blue block.
I love it.
I need this blue block. Whoop.
Very cool rainbow. What else could we make with these blocks?
A tiger.
A tiger? That's a great idea. Can you show me? How do we make a tiger?
Look, this is how you make a tiger. I mean a jumping board.
A jumping board?
I made jumping board. Look.
Boing,
Boing, boing, boing, boing. Splash into the pool.
Wow.
That's how you make it. Look.
Blocks.
I'm putting another blue block on top of the blue block.
I love it.
I need this blue block. Whoop.
There are a number of barriers that impact a child's ability to engage in play. And probably three of the primary ones are media, marketing, and time. So as far as media, this is the screen time and the pull kids have to their phones and to video games and TV. And research consistently shows that that's not where the learning's happening. The learning's actually happening with the toy play. Despite all the marketing out there talking about the benefits of the learning apps and the Baby Einstein videos, research shows it's toy play that's not media that's so important. And then marketing, there's a lot of marketing that kids need the fanciest toys, the electronic toys, the most expensive ones, and that is certainly not true. And in fact, probably playing with the spatula and the box is more beneficial to a child's overall development. And then finally, time. Of course, there's so much pressure. Kids are under so much pressure to do well in school, standardized testing, after-school enrichment activities, that play is kind of seen as an afterthought. But I'm hoping some of the things I talked about today really highlight the fact that play is central to a child's development and should be prioritized.
Thank you, Dr. Sutton. So much great information. Remember to leave your questions and comments about the talks in the chat so we can discuss them in our live chat later. Now, be sure to take a moment and show us how much you're enjoying this programming by making a donation today via text to give. The information is located at the top of your screen. Our next presenters bring a passion for exploring new places, adventuring in nature, and encouraging risks. Ashley Givens and Maggie Williams are play workers and the co-founders of a nonprofit organization, Rooted in Play. At Rooted in Play, Ashley and Maggie develop programming that provides space, time, and a place for children to engage in self-directed play. Welcome, Ashley and Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie.
I'm Ashley, and we're the co-founders of Rooted in Play. We are so excited to be a part of the Let's Talk Play virtual symposium hosted by the Glazer Children's Museum.
We're both Tampa natives, and you can find us around local parks in Hillsborough County with our amazing trailer.
Wonder what's inside?
Hi, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about the 3 most powerful tools in the Loose Parts Play toolbox. Ashley, what are we going to learn today?
So, the title of the presentation mentions the word loose parts, so we definitely want to tell you what loose parts are, the benefits of loose parts play, again, the 3 powerful tools for effective loose parts play. We want to talk with you about how to start your own loose parts collection, and we're going to give you some action items that you can immediately implement to bring your own loose parts play to your school and your home.
Great. Have you ever bought a child a toy and they prefer to play with the box that it came in than the actual toy? Why do you think that is? So we're going to show you a series of pictures now, and while you're looking at them, what do you notice about them? What do they have in common? What are the children up to? Here we go.
So, in all of those pictures, you saw children playing with items like boxes, an orange tube, and tires. And those are some of our favorite loose parts. Loose parts are open-ended materials that can be used in a variety of ways. They can be anything: water, mud, a rock, a stick, leaf, nuts and bolts, truly anything that can be manipulated, lined up, stacked, taken apart, put back together, redesigned, reimagined, carried, can be considered a loose part. They are like a child's imagination, limitless.
So we love what loose parts have to offer, obviously. So our mission is to encourage children to get outside by creating the time, the space, and a place for self-directed play. And how does Rooted in Play achieve this mission?
It's all about the loose parts, baby.
So also to implement our mission, some of the things we have to offer are we offer free pop-up adventure playgrounds throughout Hillsborough County. We have information and education on the importance of free play. We support and encourage teachers and parents. We offer private pop-up events and take-home loose parts boxes and totes.
You've heard us use the term pop-up several times, and you might be wondering what a pop-up is. So we showed you some of our favorite loose parts, and we talked about what they are. We touched on our mission, and when you combine those 2 things, boom, you've got a pop-up. What this looks like is Maggie and I show up at a local park with our trailer full of loose parts. We unload, we playscape the materials, and then we invite children to come and play. Now we're going to show you a video clip of what a pop-up looks like so you can see for yourself.
news is you don't need to have a pop-up to bring loose parts to your own home or school. What you do need are these three things I've already mentioned a couple times. You need space, time, and place. These tools, when used effectively, are a powerful way to build resilience, creativity, problem solving, emotional regulation, and so many more. This is why they are central to the Rooted in Play mission. Let's take a closer look at each of these tools.
So the first one we want to dive into is this idea of space. So what do we mean when we create and encourage space for play? So I feel like this picture is a perfect example. Here's a picture of parents at a pop-up event. You can see they brought their lawn chairs, they set them up, they're relaxed, they're sipping coffee. I do spy a loose parts box, one of our loose parts take-home boxes in Mom's bag. So she's getting ready to take loose parts play home. But the point is they are providing space for their children to play. They're sitting back on the sidelines observing what's happening. So in order to play independently, children need to be self-directed. And this is our favorite definition of self-directed play by Peter Gray. And he says one of the crucial defining characteristics of play is that it is directed by the children or the players themselves. It's self-directed. Adult-directed games like sports or activities in school where the teacher is telling children what to do is not play by my definition. So learning to be self-directed and engage in independent play is a skill worthy of developing because it helps develop self-regulation, creativity, resilience, like Maggie mentioned, problem solving, and a child's confidence. And you may be wondering, when can you expect your child to play independently? And I think it's interesting, if you think about an infant alone in their crib, babbling, they're already engaging in some vocal play. They're experimenting with their hands. So even infants are engaging in independent play. Children can engage in solitary activities that most of us recognize as play around 12 to 15 months. And then by 18 to 24 months, children can play alone anywhere from about 10 to 30 minutes. Again, this is a skill that needs to be developed. It's important to keep in mind that these are loose guidelines. Every child develops differently and according to their own developmental timeline. So we said independent play is a skill that needs to be encouraged and developed. How do we do that? We do that in three ways. And the first way is by trusting children. Children are capable. We want to trust them and give them permission. Trusting is allowing. We are allowing them to make mistakes. We're allowing them to figure things out for themselves. We're allowing them to get frustrated. We're allowing them to problem solve, and we're allowing them to experience disappointment, and we're allowing them to then overcome that disappointment. We allow them to learn this kind of resiliency in a very real way where the stakes are relatively low, like when they are engaged in loose parts play. So another way we can make space for loose parts play is by encouraging their autonomy and giving them choices. They need practice making decisions for themselves. As adults, we need to allow them to do that, and we want to encourage their autonomy. They need to get to know themselves for who they are and not merely as an extension of the adults in their lives. So giving them the space to do that in loose parts play is a safe way to do that. And number three, how we can encourage space for loose parts play is to walk away when we feel tempted to insert our own agenda or our own ideas into their play. And as parents and play workers, Maggie and I can say this is probably one of the hardest things to do. You can see as an adult the outcomes that a child can't. We have experienced that they don't. And it's often easier to do it our way when we know our way works. And we have the best intentions by doing that, but children do need to experience failure and disappointment in a safe space in order to build those problem-solving emotional regulation skills. So if you feel like you do need to intervene, it's helpful to make an observation versus a judgment. So an observation are things that you can see and then you report on. A judgment is you see something and then you evaluate it. For example, an observation would be that branch you're about to step on is pretty small. A judgment would be that branch will break if you step on it and you will fall and could potentially hurt yourself. And we want to make note, one thing that adults tend to say quite a bit, including myself, is be careful. And we want to talk to you about what you can say instead of being careful. And wait a minute, why can't we say be careful? Because it is an implied judgment. What we're really saying is, I don't trust you to make a safe decision right now. But sometimes we do need to alert our children to potential hazards. So what we can do instead, again, is to make an observation and maybe ask some questions like, what is your plan here? Point things out to them, make an observation. There's a hole right here. Sticks need space, or I'm right here if you need me. So we mentioned that independent play is a skill to develop. We want to give you an action item, something you can do right away to help develop this skill. And it's not just developing that skill in children either. As adults, sometimes we need to learn to give our children some space. So our recommendation is to start by setting a timer. It can even be as little as 3 minutes at first, depending on your child's age. You just want a few sacred minutes to start with, where you are committed to not intervening in their play. You're not going to help, you're not going to guide them. You can even tell your child, I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. I have something to do, so you can play until I get back. And then you can gradually increase the amount of time you're stepping away and allowing your child to engage in independent play. So now we're going to get into our next tool in the toolbox, and that is time.
All right, thanks, Ashley. All right, the second tool we're diving into is time, like Ashley said. What do we mean about creating time for play? So figured we'd tell you a story. This was one of our pop-up events, and this child immediately entered into play. We had a lot of loose parts you can see in this picture. He clearly knew and had a plan of something he wanted to make. So as play workers, our job is to support the play, but not to intervene. So, we were watching from afar and ensuring, there was no safety hazards, and he continued to create and create. Eventually, he did ask us for help to balance tires on either end of this long cardboard tube. So, of course, we were more than willing to jump in and help him with what his idea was. So while we were helping, we had an opportunity to ask what he was creating. And so interestingly, at school, he was learning about Newton's cradle in science class. And so he saw all these materials and was thinking he could make his own. So we continued to support his play by holding the tires while he tied them on and balanced them. Now, wrapping this back up to time, this was over at least an hour. So he wasn't rushed. He was able to spend the time to tweak and change and create his idea until he was satisfied. And we like this story. It's a magical story for us. It's a great demonstration of the need for children to have these extended periods of time so that they can fully engage in play. So this quote, this is all about flow. And flow is a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. I feel like this totally wraps up the story I just told. He was so involved, he was focused, and he he actually, kept doing it and had a really great experience just for doing it. He knew he wasn't taking it home. He knew he was just creating it to create it. So have you heard of flow? Have you thought about how flow exists in your life? It's become an idealized, almost mythical state in our culture today, but kids enter the flow state regularly, given enough time. They need the time to immerse themselves fully in play. So there's a lot of benefits to entering the flow state. So some are focused attention, improved performance, accelerated skill, and learning development. It teaches them to rise to challenges and increases creativity and enjoyment. So how can you make time for play? So one way is, well, to prioritize it, right? So we prioritize a lot of things in our lives, and this is maybe a new idea for you, to prioritize play, to commit to it, to set dedicated time aside for it. And how can you make that easier? Well, you can join with other people, a community that are committed to the same thing. There's outdoor play challenges on Instagram. Talk to your neighbors and friends. Rooted in Play, we have an outdoor challenge for the summer. Okay, so we have an action item like we did for the last. So as you plan for the new school year and, signing up for activities, why not include play as one of your activities for this next school year? And prioritize and plan for a 1-hour challenge every day to play. And that's uninterrupted playtime that allows the child the time to get into the flow state. So we will share our social media handles later, but you can join our Empower Hour challenge, and it is fun to do it together with a community. Okay, so now Ashley's going to our third tool, place.
So our final tool in the toolbox is creating a safe place for play. And we adults tend to overcomplicate this. It can be very simple. It can be a table, a small patch of grass. It's not so much about the physical place, but what you do with it, the environment that you create. So let's dive into this idea of place a little bit more. And we're going to show you, this is a quote that I always think about from the movie Field of Dreams when I think about creating a place for play. If you build it, they will come. So what do you want to focus on when you're considering a place for children to play? You want to think of the place as an invitation, or better yet, a provocation. The environment not only invites children in, but it demands an action or a response from them. And loose parts do that. Interesting materials that children aren't accustomed to using or playing with naturally spark their curiosity. They're drawn to them. But first, children must feel safe. So step one in providing a place for loose parts play is to create a safe place where children are respected. And safe doesn't necessarily mean risk-free. We're going to get into that in a minute. But we want to foster an environment where children are fully seen, they're fully heard, and they're respected. That children can't truly relax and get to the business of playing unless they feel safe. But safety doesn't necessarily mean risk-free. Children do need to engage in risky play and take healthy risks in order to build their self-confidence, their resilience, and their executive functioning and planning abilities. Children, they don't know their limits unless they're able to test them. And our job as the adults is to allow them to do that and to be able to foresee hazards and remove hazards, but not remove risks. Our next step in creating a safe place for loose parts play is by designing an environment that's stimulating and it has lots of variables. And what do we mean by variables? We mean options, we mean opportunities, we mean possibilities. Loose parts are exciting because they don't come with instructions. They are open-ended. They are passive and they need to be activated by the child in order to make them work. A box is just a box until it becomes a roller coaster or a rocket or a fort. So many possibilities. The third step in creating a place for loose parts play is to embrace this idea of strewing or playscaping. And we say that strewing is like Fight Club. You don't talk about it. You set out the materials and you walk away. They are there as an invitation that the child can then decide to decline or accept. And we as the adults are not attached to either outcome. The more interesting, the more thoughtful and provoking the items are, the better chance you have that the children are going to take you up on your invitation. Loose parts play is all about allowing. We want to give children the permission to play with items that they don't normally have an opportunity to play with. And that is usually provocation enough. So our action item for creating a place for play is to start your own loose parts collection. And I feel like this can be an intimidating step, but it really isn't. So we're going to give you a few clues on how to build your own loose parts collection. You want to start small. So you don't need a lot of loose parts and you don't need to start with some of these larger loose parts. In the next slide, you're going to see a couple of pictures of some of our favorite small loose parts that we include in our take-home boxes. You don't even need to spend money on loose parts at first. They can be natural items like rocks, sticks, shells. You can see some seed pods that we collected here, some leaves. Those are very simple things to start with. And in the next slide, you'll see we want to keep it simple. You don't need to overthink it. You don't even need to have an idea about what a child is going to do with a loose part. In fact, it's better if you don't. Oftentimes, Maggie and I will pick up an item from the side of the road and we have no idea what a child is going to do with it. And even if we have an idea, they always surprise us with their creativity. When you don't have an idea in mind of what the child is going to do with a loose part, you're less likely to kind of insert your own idea or agenda about how it should be used in play. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation and observing. Here's how you can find us if you're interested in attending a pop-up event. We also have a free PDF on our website with more specific information about how to build your loose parts collection. We also have a loose parts mini course available if you want to dive even deeper into the world of loose parts play. Ready for the big reveal?
Don't you want to play with all these loose parts?
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram to find out where we'll be popping up next.
Thank you, Ashley and Maggie. I can't wait to dig into this further when we get into our live discussion. Don't forget to leave those comments and questions in the chat. Our third speaker today is early childhood teacher and influencer, Mr. Chazz Lewis. Mr. Chazz, as he is known, is an educational specialist who teaches teachers to teach. His mission in life is to enjoy the process of becoming the best version of himself and help others do the same. Mr. Chazz has trained thousands of teachers in person and virtually, works closely with schools and children, and is in the process of writing a book. You can find Mr. Chazz sharing content on TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, and at his podcast, Mr. Chazz's Leadership, Parenting, and Teaching podcast. Welcome, Mr. Chazz.
If you look back at the story of our lives, you'll realize that most of us grew up feeling unseen. So we hid scenes of our lives for fear of being shamed into feeling obscene. So instead of walking in the wisdom of our parents and our great-great-grands, we dance into trouble to the tune of Parents Just Don't Understand. But I envision a world where children truly feel seen by adults, where they feel safe to make mistakes and they can embrace their faults. I envision a world where children can be vibrant or silent, where adults choose guidance over violence, where we build a foundation of trust that elicits an alliance over a defiance. Come build that world with me.
Mr. Chazz, we are so excited that you are here with us today for our Let's Talk Play Symposium. This, last year and a half has been crazy, and we've been so focused on play. So my name is Pam Hillestad, and I am the Director of Education at the Glazer Children's Museum, and we're thrilled to have you here to talk to us about your part in the world of play. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now and why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too. Thank you for having me on. So a little bit about my story is, and I'll try to give the super condensed version. But I started off as a Montessori teacher. I became a teacher of teachers, where I'm going to 8 or 9 different schools, kind of depending on the timeline that we're talking, but I'm going to different schools and I'm supporting teachers inside and outside the classroom. I'm doing trainings. I'm kind of the person that they call when there's a challenge happening in the classroom and the teacher doesn't know how to handle it, and the child's having a hard time. I'm the person who they call. So I kind of fly into a lot of kind of challenging situations. Some people would describe what I do as storm chasing. I sometimes describe it as like I'm the Olivia Pope of classrooms. If anyone's ever watched Scandal, that's what I was doing for a long time. And then the pandemic happened. All the kids went home, all the teachers went home, or at least most of them. Our schools were still open, but there weren't a lot of children or teachers there. And I started to see especially through social media and conversations I was having with people, how parents were really struggling during this time and this new challenge that they were facing of being the everything for their child 24/7. And they would share kind of some of the struggles that they were having. And I was listening and I was like, hey, I feel like I have a lot of insight here. I feel like there's something that I can contribute here, some knowledge, some wisdom, some insight, some perspective I can share that may help parents during this challenging time, or just in general. So I started to make the TikTok videos that blew up and grew, and Instagram it grew, and Facebook turned into a podcast. And I also do provide services for one-on-one coaching to parents, and all in this kind of pursuit to help parents and teachers, really adults, not just parents, but help adults truly understand children, so that they can better guide them and trust them. So I kind of break it down to 3 components: see, guide, and trust. And so that's a little bit about me and how I got here.
Because the focus of this is the fact that play helps in healing, and we chose that topic because we were thinking about COVID, but we also know that you are an expert in generational traumas and the healing that needs to come from that. I'm wondering if you can comment on the healing power of play from that lens, from can play help to heal generational trauma?
Can play help to heal generational trauma? For sure. And one of the big things about it, I could talk about this for a child and for an adult, but let's talk about the child first. Just the connection, especially kind of during these times, just the connection that a child makes with another person, with a peer, with a child during play is healing. And connection with others is a very underrated thing to talk about. I think some people talk about it, but it's so important. And play is a huge way that we connect with others. And the eye contact, the touch that's often involved in play, just the playful situations where we're laughing. This is how we create connections with others, and just simply connecting with others in that way is healing. Now, we're not talking about a specific kind of trauma. So, we can't really get into specifics about that unless we're talking a specific kind of trauma, but connection across the board is a piece of the puzzle. And really you look at any kind of healing program, process, even the 12-step program, right, connection is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, play can be very healing for children, and for adults, it can also be very healing, and really in the same kind of way of just connecting with others.
Very cool. We're so thrilled to have an influencer like you partnering with us and on the same page, understanding the importance of play. And one of the things we've been talking about lately, because this has been a really traumatic time this last 18 months, but childhood and generational trauma has always been very, very difficult. And I think some of understanding play, like for caregivers, they need to kind of understand where their own play heritage is, like how they played children, because it has such a strong impact on how their children play, or how they know, what kind of spaces they're allowed, that they give to children to play. So I wondered if you would share something with me about how you played as a child.
Oh man, I played a lot. And I think even as a child, adults, a common phrase that I heard in my childhood is, "You play too much." So, and I do remember too, even as I was getting older, I remember I was playing with toys, action figures, and I would create these elaborate stories and think of like just origin stories and backgrounds and upbringings that these characters had. And I would play for hours and hours. And I remember thinking that like I had this strong urge to play, but as I got older, it became a thing that wasn't as like acceptable. And I remember feeling some shame that I was still playing with action figures as I was getting older. And I wanted to stop because it wasn't cool, and I was kind of getting these shame messages about it. But I had this strong urge, and I'm like, I can't not do this. And eventually the urge wasn't as strong, and I think I started doing other things and like playing like travel soccer and stuff like that. But I just remember that urge to play being so strong, even though I wanted to stop it or decrease it to please the adults around. I still just had to do it. And I think about how that impacts, like, okay, so what did that say about me as a child? How does that impact me today? And like now as like an influencer or whatever you want to call me, and me kind of playing with these ideas and communicating things, some ways, sometimes I communicate ideas through stories. And I bring that back to like, just, that's something that's always been a part of me. And now I'm using that kind of superpower as a child in my adulthood and using it to impact thousands and thousands of people. So it's great how it's gone full circle.
That's amazing. What I just heard you say is that play unleashed your superpower.
And even
I mean, that's
play
really
is a part of my superpower,
yeah.
you know. But yeah, no, I think the way you said it was good. Like play really does unleash many of my superpowers.
Yeah.
And storytelling is one of those. So a couple notes of one thing about the importance of play. One, a lot of times it's the way that children process the information, their experiences, things that are happening around them, right? And that is the way you may see a child playing and pretending to be the teacher at school, or even pretending to be the parent, or pretending to go to the doctors after they've had that experience. And that is them processing. And I say that play is it's like the window to a child's mind. And so even as the parent or a teacher, any adult, to watch a child play, you get to learn so much about them. And the other thing that's kind of what you were saying is play is that opportunity to practice all this, especially young children, even, older children, because the play changes. And as you see the play changes, it also changes with what their development and it's really important is important for them to be learning at the time. And so for young children, when they're playing, they're using their physical, their emotional, their cognitive, and social development. They're using all of those things, right? You think about a child that is, they go outside. They will go and probably, they'll find a tool. And I'm kind of gonna have like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old in my mind, because it can be different, but they'll go out and there's some tools out there, and especially if you have some play objects for them, it's even better to kind of for them to manipulate, to inspire them in their play. They'll get a shovel, they'll start digging, and then they're learning about the properties of the earth and dirt, right? And maybe they'll drop it and they're learning about gravity. And then they are using their physical, their fine motor and likely gross motor skills, their little muscles, their little finger muscles, and they're working on developing that. And that's going to help with pre-writing skills down the line, or in other practical life skills. And if there's a child there who's maybe they try to take the shovel away, or maybe they're not taking the shovel away and they're digging with them, that's a social interaction. And that's an opportunity to, like, hey, are we building a pile together? Or no, this is my pile. Now the child's learning to set a boundary. All these lessons are naturally happening. And then when that child sets the boundary, then the other child maybe feels some type of way about it and they're frustrated. Now we have to learn how to deal with frustration, how to communicate, how to solve the problem. All these things happen naturally. We don't have to set them up and we don't have to set it up. It happens naturally. And a lot of times we can just observe and they can learn to work it out themselves. And sometimes there needs to be an intervention and we can support that.
Right.
All these things happen naturally, organically, and powerfully, more powerful than most of the things that we try to plan and set up.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things that has changed a lot about play, is that play used to be self-guided, it used to be child-led, and then there was a time where adults took the ownership of play and even set up opportunities for kids to play, but we're just so inserted into it. We're going to play from this, think about it at schools, we're going to play from this time to this time at recess, or after school, you're going to go and you're going to play here from this time to this time. And those opportunities are really completely child-led. And the real beauty of play is in that child-led, self-directed kind of play where the adult is not stepping in to correct something, but trusting the children and then stepping in when need, if there's a need, but giving that space to play and work through problems, like the things that you were talking about, shoveling and all of that. That's discovery, that's experimentation. It's more powerful when they do it on their own, I think. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, because it's intrinsically motivated, right? It's something that they've started the lesson. And anytime either the child starts the lesson, or they're curious, or you already have the buy-in there, and that intrinsic motivation is going to push them through the lesson. So if you sit there and you're and you're talking about how to respond how to get your shovel back, and you're like it's not, first of all, that's not really meaningful to them because it's not happening right then. And and maybe if it just happened and you're talking about it, and maybe it's a little bit more meaningful, but when it's in the moment and I want my shovel back, I'm way more open to hear how to get my shovel back. Granted, I'm regulated enough to, hear there might be a moment where emotions bubble up and I'm get really frustrated. Maybe it's 0 to 100, maybe it's gradually, but even then, learning opportunity. And if there's a child who, is very reactive, that's probably the big lesson that they need, right? And it's not about just the one-on-one talking to them about what they do when they feel mad or sad or angry. There's opportunities to talk about it, but it's the practice of it, it's the doing of it, it's the experience of it.
Okay, so, I have one other thing. You promised me you were going to sing to me when we talked on the phone before. You said you were going to sing something. Can you give me a couple lines of something?
Yeah. What I want to do. Okay, let's do this one. This is a popular one. The turtle song. This is a song that can help. I'm actually going to change so I can get a little bit more of my body here. This is a song that can help with regulation, in teaching children about regulation and how to regulate. It's the tool. It's not a magical fix or anything like that, even though some people swear it is. But here you go. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing it with me. Awesome. Yeah. Right? Yeah, do that. Cross that midline. All right. Turtle, turtle, turtle. Turtle. Let's do the turtle now. Turtle when you're mad, turtle when you're sad. Just take a deep breath and hug yourself. Turtle can make you glad. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Chazz. You gave us so much to think about. As we discuss the benefits of play, all 4 of our speakers today have brought different perspectives to the topic. Now that the adults have had a chance to tell you about the importance of play, it's time to let the children show you. So please enjoy this moment of play.
All right. Hello, everyone. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sara Cole, the president and CEO here at the Glazer Children's Museum. Did that video just fill your bucket or what? Before we head into our little chat on and reflecting on what we've just heard, I really once again want to thank everyone who made today possible. Thank you to our amazing speakers, Dr. Danielle Sutton, Maggie and Ashley from Rooted in Play, and Mr. Chazz for so generously sharing your expertise with us. I also want to put a shout out to the team here at the Glazer Children's Museum, especially our marketing team, Kate, Lauren, and Carlynn, to our Director of Education, Pam, and to our Chief Development Officer, Anicia, for bringing this idea to life. I am completely honored to serve here at the Children's Museum, where we recognize that our role in bringing play to the families of Tampa Bay and beyond, whether through engaging exhibits that create magical spaces for play, activities like our family play projects, which encourage families to take the time together to play, and our GCM at home and Learn and Play at Home platforms to help families create their own spaces for play wherever they are. Now, it's time for us to chat about everything we've seen. And joining me today is Jennifer Phelps. Jennifer has been helping children and families learn together since she was a tween. She specializes in working with children with disabilities and their family, is a board member here at GCM, a mom, and just a genuinely wonderful person. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to our speakers. It was amazing to listen to each talk. It's a topic that's dear to my heart, not just from someone who's learned and loved to play with kids my whole life, but having realized when I had my own children that pretend play was really hard for me and I wasn't good at it. That was a challenge. So this is just something that I love to talk about. This event wouldn't be possible without our generous donors, the Tampa Bay Times, the Casper's Company, the Early Learning Coalition of Hillsborough County, the Helios Education Foundation, Johnson & Jackson, PNC Bank, ReliaQuest, Rivero and Gordimer and Company, BDE Florida, Dominion Payroll, the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities at USF, and PAR.
GCM relies on the generosity of our community support for all of our efforts. So thank you to everyone who has given so far, either through your registration or during today's session. I'm going to put one last invite out there for our text to give option, which is on your screen. Remember, any contribution matters. $1 goes a long way. As we've seen from sessions today, little things do make a big difference. And now we are going to spend a little bit of time answering some of the questions that were out there and just kind of talking about what we've seen. So if you have other comments or other questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started.
I have a question.
You have a question?
I do.
Okay.
What was your favorite way to play when you were a child?
Oh gosh, favorite way to play as a kid. So I grew up in the boonies, and it was me and my younger brother. So I played with a lot of boy toys. But when I think about my favorite ways to play, they always involved water and just using things in really weird ways. We would always make little boats out of tin foil and float them down little fake rivers, things like that.
Yeah.
How about you?
I, believe it or not, for being a girl who never wanted to wear anything but dresses, loved to make mud pies and play in the mud and in the dirt and like dig and find things and snails and just be outdoors.
Yeah.
Climb trees and pretend.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We've done an exercise with our staff here. We've all kind of had those moments of like, think back, close your eyes and think back about playing and what that felt like. And like 90% of the time, our memories are about being outdoors and playing outdoors. And I think for, you know, being in a world now where we spend so much of our time indoors and not connected to nature, you know, something about playing in the dirt and the mud and splashing in puddles just sticks with you. Right. It's amazing. All right, let's see. We've got a couple of questions that have popped in here. You know what? Actually, before we get into that, you know, we kind of set this session up. When we first started thinking about, you know, what were we going to do? How are we going to really start talking about play this year? And you know, it's been a really stressful. What are we at? Like 18 months, almost 2 years of this craziness. And I mean, I don't know about you, but my kids have not done well for a lot of it. So how have you used play to kind of help you guys get through that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I think one way that was really surprising for me was that because of all this time together, it's part of when I really realized that I wasn't good with that impromptu pretend play. I was really good at finding fun lessons to teach them. I think that's, as a therapist, just what I was just always looking for things to teach. And I was really good at like the board games, but I wasn't really good at that just imaginative play. So I actually told my 7-year-old that I wanted to be better at it and to please remind me and to pull me in and show me, to teach me how to play with him. It kind of makes me want to cry a little bit.
That's amazing.
And he did, and he really understood. And there's been many moments where I've had to stop in my tracks and go, oh, he's right. Put it down. Be there in that moment. So I think, you know, it helped me heal holistically beyond just the pandemic, but also because of the pandemic, in those moments, really feeling the joy that still existed in our world and that hope that we're getting back to a normal place, and the joy in those moments of really putting everything down and playing.
That's amazing.
How about
That's wonderful. You know, it's similar in some ways, because when I hear your story, I think about what an amazing message to give your child, that I don't know, you have to teach me, and I'm trusting you to lead me through that. And I think, you know, and we've talked about this before, that mess is a real thing and it is a stressor.
I love mess.
You know, I love mess, not always in my house. And so, you know, as we think, you know, like the thing that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up is when my kids say, Mommy, can we make slime? You know, but I think by virtue of the fact that we were all so tapped out for so long, I kind of just let things go that normally would stress me out. And so, you know, the whole like, can I go make a mess in the sink kind of became like, okay, all right, fine. And the world didn't end, and my house didn't flood, and my cabinets didn't fall apart. And we were able to learn to clean up together. And so now it's like, yes, it's okay. Go for it. Go ahead and make a mess. And I think, and they, you know, so I think that idea of, I mean, it was just the proximity constantly to our kids, but that space of being able to trust them to know how to play was really great.
I love that you brought up mess, because I now have a philosophy, the more mess, the more fun. And it's okay. The mess is okay. It'll get cleaned up, and they'll learn something, like you said, through the process of cleaning up.
That's great. That's great. Let's see if we've got some questions from the group. I saw some great things coming through. Lindsey had posted this comment that I think is amazing, saying that setting a reminder on my phone tonight to talk to hubby about play registration and getting it on the calendar. We register for everything else. Why not take the next step to make this part of our routine? And I got to say, the first thing I thought when I saw this is, I don't know about you, but I have to put lunch on my calendar or I forget to eat it, And so I think we are in this space where we live so much of our day-to-day driven by that calendar, and putting down time to play.
And I love that, because it also carves out and saves the spot. So you don't accidentally get caught up with, oh, now my child needs piano lessons or whatever it is, and inadvertently take up more of that time.
I'm thinking about what Dr. Sutton said about that idea of, you know, that scale of play, that as we move from child-directed to parent-directed, they're all valuable, but there's so much that's lost as we start to take the take the authority away from the child in that space, but to set up time for child-directed, child-driven play is so amazing.
What an amazing way to honor their space and what's important to them, that play. Like you're really outlining in your calendar, honoring
this is
their play space. This is their time, not something I chose. It's their time. Gives me goosebumps.
That's amazing. Lindsey, that's incredible. I would love to.
I'm going to do the same
here.
thing.
I'm totally, absolutely going to do it, and would love to hear afterwards how that worked out. I hope other people are doing that. Let's see. We've got 2 questions. I think that, I think Mr. Chazz really spoke to a lot of us. I know. He's one of my favorite Insta people right now. I was telling Jennifer my Instagram feed, my algorithms really think that I'm an early childhood educator to the max right now. I am, but it's all about early childhood stuff right now, which is great. And so looking at this idea that, one of the most meaningful things I've learned is that trauma that occurs in relationships can be healed by relationships. And then someone else posted, Sarah, so Kathryn posted that. Sara said, generational trauma, and if play was part of our success formula growing up, how often was play encouraged in your home? And so, I think to me, both of these things kind of speak to this idea of parents work with the tools that we grew up with. Right. And so, what was play like for you growing up? How was that honored?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is I was allowed a ton of free access to play and to play outdoors. And I didn't do very many activities when I was a child. But so I think when I became a parent, I thought I had missed out. So I did the opposite of what my parents did. And I thought, I didn't do enough dance and I didn't learn how to play. I didn't do all these things. I wish I would have. Right. So I signed my kids up for all this stuff. And then, of course, like every parent wishes finally happens once your kids get old enough. I went, oh, my mom was right. And I started canceling things.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I think I had a very privileged upbringing in that way, right? Like I said, we grew up in the boonies. I had plans and chances to play outdoors. But, I've got a lot of friends who did grow up with trauma in their lifetime. And, play was just not something that was in their house, whether they were kids who had to go to work from a very young age or didn't have a safe environment to play in or a comfortable home. I remember having those friends who were like, you can't come play at my house for whatever reason. And you knew there was some trauma. And, and talking to them as we've gotten older, there is that idea that, a couple of them have said learning to play with their kids is actually kind of reset their synapses in some ways.
Absolutely.
But it's hard. And I think, I think one of the things that we talked about through this that was so important is to acknowledge that, one, we don't have all the answers at all. We are stumbling our way through this. I think recognizing that we both come from a space of privilege. We both grew up in places where play was accepted and embraced, and we had time and space to do that. But that idea of the well-meaning adult, I think really listening to that idea of well-meaning, we're doing the best that we can.
There's so many families who, their both parents are working full-time. They get home. There's, things they need their child to do to help them. They have multiple siblings, and that's okay. And it's okay not to have that time every day to be able to register for play if that's your scenario. It's sometimes about finding moments inside the busy to play.
And I think we can all, regardless of, like, I know, so I have a child who's neurodiverse, and I think about how I let him play versus how I let my daughter play who's neurotypical. There's differences, and I think a lot of times the boundaries we create around our kids come from a well-meaning place. They sometimes come from a place of safety. And I have friends who have children on the spectrum, Black parents who have children on the spectrum, letting them play, run around the park might not feel safe in some ways. And so I think, really recognizing there are boundaries around our world, but finding spaces that we can engage with that and we can really intersect with that, and use that to I think just looking at it and naming it sometimes
Right.
moves us forward.
Yeah.
And for those of us who are in a space of privilege going, hey, maybe this
Yeah.
kid is just trying to play.
Right. And realizing there's no, even though we've gotten some amazing tips on the best ways to play, there's no wrong way to play.
Yeah.
Right. Like you may afterwards say, oh, I wish I did too much for them, but it's not broken. You just do it again.
Mhm.
Like there's no,
Yeah.
you can't fail at playing.
No, right?
You never fail like you failed.
Absolutely.
I was telling you earlier how I tell parents and I listen and I'm always reading and about not doing things for your child, not jumping in and fixing.
Yeah.
And this weekend, my son had an amazing homework project and he was outside and I was looking at it fall apart and I was like, I should go get him. He should be able to fix it. And I fixed it.
Yeah.
I fixed it for him. And I, in that moment I went, I'm failing. And when I showed him, I said, I want you to know, I know you could have done this and you would have done it better than me, but I touched your homework.
Yeah.
No, sorry. It failed.
I mean, it's real, right?
Right.
It's just like, we're every
We're
second you're
humans.
trying to do the best thing
Yeah.
you can for your kid. And we're going to screw it up. We're going to screw it up a lot.
Well,
but
what was it? The well-meaning
well-meaning adult.
Well-meaning adult.
Well-meaning adult.
I love that.
I love it. I love this question about tantrums. Can play help with tantrums? Ooh, tantrums.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
So Megan posted, I'm a big fan of using silliness and play to prevent and reset tantrum behavior. My toddler may not want to get dressed for the day, but it's a lot more appealing to pretend to be a T-Rex while doing it, or say, would you rather tiptoe or hop to go brush your teeth?
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing.
Yes.
And I'm so sad that I did not have that tip when my kids were in that
Right.
age.
So one of my favorite ones, my son, I can't, poor Evan. I mean,
It's okay. I'm the same with
he's
Bob.
just always my example. So eating with silverware was really hard for him for some reason. So sometimes I would say to him, do you want to eat like a dinosaur today or do you want to eat like a boy? And I gave him that choice and kind of excused myself in some moments from having to push and be on top of him if I knew I couldn't follow through, because I knew he was usually going to choose to be a dinosaur or whatever animal it was he was identifying with at that time. And it really so helpful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think having an older kid who has a lot of temper tantrums, we actually use play and silliness to sometimes kind of break through the storm, I guess is the way I would say it. So like,
redirect that
when we're
storm
in that
kind of
space of, just can't get through, I always say there's that moment when a tantrum starts to edge into a meltdown and you can see it, if you watch your kid enough, you can see that moment. And generally that is the moment that I will lean in and blow a raspberry on the kid's belly.
Yeah.
Just like, I know the chances are I might get hit in doing this, but for whatever reason, it's like the record skips.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
yeah,
oh, you're going to play with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you think about like if you're having a really frustrating day yourself and you're feeling your own frustrations build, and then all of a sudden the phone rings and it's a friend.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like breaking up that routine. And I think it speaks to like honoring them as people just like we are. They have the same.
Absolutely. So, okay. So I have to tell this story. Like put myself a little on blast here. So I may or may not have been having a semi-intense Zoom meeting not too long ago, and I could totally feel like my blood pressure rising. I could feel myself getting really frustrated, and I have a little bottle of bubbles on my desk, and I turned my camera off and blew bubbles. I was just like, I needed the breathing exercise, and I had that moment of like, what would I do for Bobby in this moment? I have him blow bubbles. Let's blow bubbles. And it worked. It just redirected my brain.
So with my team at work, we were getting to this space and we've worked really hard and getting comfortable with identifying that in our meetings. So the other day, I was just feeling overwhelmed by the topic and everybody's emotions. And I was able to just say, hey guys, I need a break. I need a break for a minute. And to go and just walk around. And our children don't always have the ability to verbalize that. So if we can look at their cues, and whether it's through play or being silly or just saying, mom needs a break.
Yeah.
They don't have to ask for it. You know that they need a break. How you can reset things.
And honoring that. I think that becomes the thing. I've noticed that with my kids, very much like if they say they need a break, that's a non-negotiable in our house. Like, okay. We can negotiate around the time for the break. Do you need a 1 minute or a 3 minute break? Do you need a 5 minute or a 7 minute break? And we set the timer. But saying, if you say I need a break, that's a hard stop
Yeah.
because they have to know that that's going to be valued.
Yeah. And what an amazing skill to have as an adult.
Right.
To grow with them. So
I wish that I had grown up with that.
Right. Learning these things through play, how that makes them really strong adults.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah, I wish I'd had that.
It is. So we had a question earlier on about resilience, which is, I think, the other thing that, we really wanted to talk about, this idea of healing and resilience, and how do we use play to build resilience? First of all, how would you define resilience for kids?
Ooh. I don't know if it's right.
I don't care.
I think
mine's not right.
I think of resilience for my children when we talk about it as not giving up.
Yeah.
And it's okay to take breaks, and you can take as many breaks as you need. You can even take a break for a whole entire day from something, but it's not giving up. It might be asking, you still ask for help, but it never becomes something that you just say, I gave up, without asking for help and trying different things. You can be frustrated, but it's just, if it becomes something you don't want to do anymore, it's for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add in. For me, one of the things we've really tried to express as someone who has changed paths many times in my life is that that's okay. Yeah, right. And it's okay if you get to something and you're like,
I don't like this.
I have tried, I have pushed, I don't want to do this right now. Okay, let's talk about how to work our way out of it versus just saying, I give up, gonna walk away. So
and you know what I want to teach them next, and this is, to me, I don't know how I'm going to do this, is that you can be good at something and still say, it's not good for me.
Oh my gosh.
And I choose not to do it any longer, because that's something that was never taught to me. And so I think that's why I say yes to everything that I'm good at. And then I realize this is not actually good for me. Like, I love helping people and I'm helping everyone, or I'm doing whatever, but it's not good for me anymore. And it's learning how to say no.
Yeah. Man, as we're talking about trauma, how many of us are looking at our adultness and saying, like, ooh, setting boundaries. Let's figure out, like, how do I make sure my kid doesn't become me?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. How do I make sure my kid doesn't become me?
So, ladies, we have about a few minutes left.
Okay.
So I have one last
This
question.
is the lovely voice of Carlynn, who is helping us through and being our amazing producer today.
So earlier, we got a question about rooted in plays.
Oh,
and Lauren
yeah.
says, I loved your statement. A box is just a box until it's a roller coaster.
Yes, I love
What is your favorite loose part to noodle with?
Ooh. Favorite loose part?
Okay. Well, in my house, it is the box.
It is
for
the
my
box.
kids. It is the box, but the box must have. It can be any box, actually. To be honest, it's trash.
Okay, sure.
Water bottles. So this is one thing, following Rooted on Play on social media, which has really given me ideas. We don't throw away all of our water bottles or our paper towel tools. I keep a bin.
Nice.
And they just use it with some painter's tape.
That's awesome.
Or sometimes no tape. Yeah. Do you have something?
So my kids' favorite, both of them. So I have twins. Both of their favorite since they were little to today.
Okay.
Favorite thing, loose part in the house to play with is a laundry basket.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
And it's funny that you meant that they said roller coaster, right? Because that was their roller coaster when we were little. You'd sit in the laundry basket and we'd pretend it was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And we have the regular size ones, we have square ones, we have tall ones. I have a lot of like stuff with no house and it all lives in laundry baskets. But you put a big hamper over your head and you're a robot. You climb inside of it and you're in a little pod. You put a blanket around yourself. There's so many. They use those laundry baskets in so many ways, and I never have laundry baskets put laundry in, but it's fun because they're having a great time.
Great. Let me tell you what my kids made. My son made last with the box because I was kind of blown away. And I will say this occurred with a friend collecting other people's trash, their boxes that they had in their yard to go out and recycling. So let me just say there was a huge mom like, oh my God, all the trash, all the boxes, it's all in my house.
And here's my kid
dumpster neighborhood. Like, what are people thinking? They think that they probably think this is gross. They built a miniature golf course with the boxes.
Of course.
And then they had their neighborhood friends pay them 10 or 25 cents to come play on the golf course.
Amazing.
It was amazing. The lessons, and just by letting myself, I will say I went inside because the fact that it was other people's trash was freaking me out
Yep.
a little bit. So I went inside, I went back out later, and I played on the golf course, and it was such an amazing, it was one of the most, something I'll remember forever about this summer.
That's wonderful.
Other
That's
people's
really
trash.
wonderful.
So some ideas that we could leave you guys with and everyone with. Sarah says Costco boxes. My daughters built their own cat condo for kittens. Timothy says, I did like the laundry basket as a kid. And Kate said, my kids love the TV remote. They pretend to pause and fast forward us in their life.
Do they mute you?
All
I feel like my kids would. I feel like I would be muted.
My kids would love that.
That's amazing.
I'm going to start that game.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like that.
Oh, they'll think I'm so creative. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. All right, you guys, we've got a couple minutes left, and thank you so much for joining us. I think Jennifer and I could probably just sit here and
all
talk all day
Yeah.
and talk. One more reminder as our slideshow comes back up. There we go. One more reminder to, if you are so inclined to text GCM Play to 855-202-2100 to give. Any donation helps. The Children's Museum is a nonprofit serving children, and we are really excited to have this be the first of many, many discussions about the joys of play.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Don't forget to schedule your self time.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, we also wanted to point out, we've done a lot of laughs, we've done a lot of great things today, and we've really talked about play, and we had some good conversations about trauma, and, there's big T trauma, little T trauma. If you or anyone in your circles are dealing with big T trauma right now, there are so many great resources here locally and nationally to help you. So the Crisis Center and the 211 is a great opportunity for children with neurodiversity, the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities. For anyone in Hillsborough County, the Children's Board of Hillsborough County offers amazing resources. The Early Learning Coalition really gives amazing opportunities for early childhood. Frameworks is an amazing space for social emotional development, and one of our newer partners that we're so excited to be working with. Grace Point is a great opportunity for kids who might be struggling with some mental challenges. And then, as always, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is there if you or anyone is in a bad place. Please reach out to these resources. Please reach out to us. Carlynn just reminded people that registrants will be getting an email after the video is processed with a link to the entire recorded event. And we hope that we can keep this conversation going and look forward to another opportunity to talk play in the future.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. It's so much fun.